Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly webinar here at Zenatta Consulting. This one's on Zoho projects. It's our overview and best practices. I am Brett Martin, and as always, I am joined by Tyler Colt. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing great. How about you?
Living the dream, sir. So let's go through here and see what we've got today. Today we're going to kind of like this is pretty much a just a quick overview of everything. There's so much in Zoho projects. We really just wanted to cover the basic fundamentals of getting it going. So we're going to give you a quick product tour. Then we're going to talk about setting up a project. And then assigning users to that project, both internal and external, setting up your milestones, tasks, and task lists, all of the reporting that they have inside Zoho projects. Then we're going to go through time tracking budgets, and then we're going to wrap it up with kind of showing you, once that's all done, what does your homepage dashboard look like? What are the various elements you have there? And then, of course, as always, we'll do a Q&A. So with that, also before we get going, I want to say, why do you need project management software? In looking at this, I oftentimes go out on the web and I kind of search around, and you have all these lists, 15 reasons, 10 reasons, 12 reasons. Well, I kind of distilled this down to 6 reasons why you might need project management software. The basic one is kind of obvious. It's just project planning. No matter what software you choose for project management, the ability to kind of put everything down in one place and lay out a project is always extremely helpful. So you're recording what you're doing, who's doing it, when they're supposed to do it. Then, of course, the scheduling and time management. Who's going to be doing what? How much time is it going to take them to do it? And then once you figure that out, well, are your resources allocated properly? And so, then do you have budgets for these various projects, and how much are the people going to cost? How much is the time going to cost? So you really can understand whether or not, the project is going to be profitable for you at the end of the day. And then they're great tools for just communicating about the project. You can easily share notes and videos and documents and have this entire collaboration process while you're working on the project in one central location. And that kind of ties into all of the documentation and files that ties into the collaboration there. So, Zoho Projects covers all of this in spades. They do a fantastic job. It is extremely powerful and full-featured application. All right, so with that, Tyler, why don't you give us a quick projects product tour?
Yeah, so we're kind of starting off here from the initial homepage, right? So this is kind of what you're going to see when you first drop into Zoho projects. If you click on this homepage up in the top left, you'll get a little drop down here. We'll dive into some of these in a little more detail. You can see a roll up of your tasks, milestones, issues, and a calendar view kind of across all the different projects. So this is where you start off to see, kind of a top down, right? Where we're not looking at one specific project, but we're looking at them kind of across all the different projects that you may have. Next, we can kind of move over to our feed. And the feed is like an activity tracker, so any comment that's made on a project, any update on a project, people uploading files like we see here in this kind of demo page, they're all going to roll up into this feed. So if you're one of the project managers, right, there's going to be something that you're going to check a couple times throughout the day, just kind of to see at a quick glance, what all the activity is going on across the project suite. Kind of moving along the top of the page, you can hop over to your master projects list. So here in this case, we just have our one demo project here. Kind of gives it to you with a couple columns, right? So we can see the name, the percent completion, who the owner is. So kind of who's that primary responsible person for the full project, a quick status view, and then how we're tracking against our tasks, milestones, and issues that are related to this specific project. And then if we go ahead and kind of click into that project itself, right, we get kind of a different view. So now we're looking at a specific project rather than kind of the aggregate views, looking at all of the projects. So here, it's going to kick you off in your dashboard. It gives kind of a rundown of the project description, a couple key reports, like where are we tracking on our tasks, what types of things are overdue, right? So at a quick initial glance, you can see that type of information. Next, we move on to the task list. So we'll see these are kind of organized into different groups. We'll dig a little bit deeper on how to set up these task groups a little later. We'll basically see that we have sections of our tasks assigned out to people. We can see the status of the task, when they're supposed to be started, when they should be due, where our priority is on these different tasks. You can kind of run down the list this way to see where everything is at. You also have a calendar view. So any milestone or task or issue is going to have a start and a due date. And the calendar view is going to roll those up for you so you can kind of see chronologically where all these different items are in the project timeline. So here we kind of see some milestones, some tasks underneath them kind of rolling across multiple days. Next, we get into some of the reporting that we can run directly from a specific project, right? So you can run your Gantt charts if you have some task dependencies set up. You can track resource utilization, which is based on your estimate hours per task. You have some budget tracking with planned versus actual, and then your timesheet reports. And then you get some basic reporting around open and closed tasks or open and closed issues that are related to this specific project. Next, you kind of get a top-down view of any documents associated with the project. So, these could be anything from, some logo files that you're going to implement on a certain web page. You could drop in HTML of some email templates that need to be queued up to go out. A couple other examples here, some reports maybe that you want to just have on hand as you're working through this project. Or, of course, any kind of documents or write-ups that may be relevant to either the process or completion of a specific project. So it's kind of nice because you're able to nest all these files in one place. Of course, you could use like a Google Drive or Zoho Work Drive and host all your files elsewhere, but just having them all in one page directly related to the project, that those files are for, is a quick and easy way to be able to find them and kind of know what's relevant for the project you're working on. And our next tab down is the milestones. So the milestones basically represent like big goals in a project, right? So for example, if we're going to customize a CRM, one of our milestones might be core module customization. And then we could have some specific tasks or task lists under that, and then once that core customization is done, the second milestone might be automations. Right, so they're kind of in an order where you'd go milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3, to kind of organize out the timeline of a specific project. And these are just really useful for kind of keeping everything in a specific cadence that makes sense for the project that you're working on. And then next here we have the timesheets and kind of time tracking. So we'll kind of circle back around to this one and look at it in a little more detail. But in any of these tasks, we're actually able to track our time spent on those tasks, which can be useful for resource utilization and kind of cost tracking, as well as billing out billable hours to a client if one of these projects is related to some hourly work that you're doing for a client project. And for now, we're going to skip the little finance and expense tabs over there. Those kind of come into play with the Zoho Books integration. We'll keep it to kind of the core tabs here for the project. So now we're looking at issues. So issues are a unique little component here. For some editions of Zoho projects, they might be called bugs. So yours might say bugs here, but issues and bugs are kind of interchangeable inside of Zoho projects. And so basically what the issues are is let's say that we're doing a software implementation and we're trying to work out, we've got a task to set up automated email. And maybe we run into an issue where when we're sending that email out, we're noticing that the HTML is just not looking proper, right? It's not rendering right. And when we send out the email, it looks a little bit junky. So maybe we want to raise the flag and say, hey, I have an issue. I can't resolve this myself, even though the task is assigned to me. So I can create an issue that says, fix the HTML for this outgoing email. And so a lot of the times these issues basically get tagged on underneath a certain task that's open so that you're able to see any stuck points or problems that arise as you're working through your tasks. And then last but not least here over on the side, we get a quick view of any users that are in this project. So for us, we have Zenatta and Benatta, our very creative names. And so these are just two different people that are able to view and work on this project. And we'll be talking a little bit more later about how to set up these users. But at a core level, you can basically see any users or teams that have access to a given project. And then with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back over here to Brett, and he'll walk through how to go ahead and set up one of these projects for yourself.
Yeah, so setting up a project is fairly straightforward. There's really not a lot of steps to it. One of the projects tab, you're basically going to click on the new projects button. Once you've got there, you've got some basic screens. So I'm creating a project here called Setting Up Zoho CRM. The owner is going to be Zenatta, and you can select a template here. So one of the things you can actually do with your projects is, we're not going to have time to cover today, but you can create full templates. So if you have a project that's always the same, you've got the same 20, 30 tasks, it's just very easy to go into templates and set up a template. So you could choose that template and apply it to here, and it would automatically add all of the tasks and milestones and everything that were associated with that project, and go ahead and set that up for you. Then you can set your start date, your projected end date, and put a little description in there of what you want to do. You can also choose layouts. You can have various layouts of your project, similar if you're familiar with CRM. You can have various layouts. You can do the same in Zoho projects for your tasks, that is, how they're laid out. And then you can have groups. So maybe you've got a group of projects and you like to keep them all together. So you've got, in this case, it's a CRM setup projects, but maybe you have another group of projects which would be Zoho desk projects if you wanted to set those kind of things up as related to us. And then you can have tags that are associated that make it really fairly simple for you to go ahead and search for various projects based around that. Additionally, you have the ability to roll up all the dates from the tasks and subtasks into projects and milestones, all the work hours, time logs. You can do a complete roll up of everything that you've got across your projects and this project. It's important to note though, once you turn it on, you can never turn it off. So once you've kind of enabled the whole roll up, and I do recommend you do, it's very helpful. There's kind of no going back at that point in time, and it's going to be rolled up from there. And then you can decide what tabs you want. We're going to talk about this a little more. You can choose the tabs here directly, but then there are some other ways you can set that up, and we'll talk. So you're not kind of stuck with this once you set it up. But out of the gate, maybe you only need a few different tasks for this, and those are a few different tabs. Those are the tabs you're going to want to see, and you can just kind of clean up your overall project by doing that. And then you have a choice to make it public or private. I actually had a question about this earlier from a person who said they couldn't make the webinar, but they wanted to know if you can have a private project. You can, and then only project users can view and access that project. If you have public, then portal users can view it, they can follow it, they can comment. So it's kind of your choice to whoever you're going to go ahead and add to that project. And then once it's set up, that's pretty much the overall basic. Once you hit that save button, you get this screen, which gives you a basic Kanban view, which is another way of viewing all your tasks. Tyler didn't cover that when he was viewing the task. It was kind of in classic view there. But in Kanban view, you have the ability to drag all your tasks from one column to another column all the way to being completed. And so this is kind of the basic view it gets you, which is going to say, okay, your project's here. Now go ahead and set up your tasks. And we'll cover that in a little bit. But one of the key other elements you want to do when you set up your project is you have to assign the users to it. So to do that, you're actually going to go to the settings tab up here, and then you're going to click on manage users. And once you go ahead and click the manage users, you've got a variety of choices. You've got the portal users. Here you've got Ben and Zen. Their third brother Ken isn't part of this, I guess. And you basically just go ahead and you make sure you've got those. They're added. You can add additional users. But the most importantly for this, oftentimes you're going to want to add client users. So this is adding external users to your project. So in this case, I went ahead and I added myself, Brett Martin from Zenatta Consulting. I'm a client, and you choose the projects that you're going to go ahead and add them to. So in this case, we have two. I just wanted to add them to this one CRM Zen project, setting up the Zoho CRM project. So straightforward, going ahead and adding them. And then once you click and you add them, the user's added successfully. And now you can see that you have got your Zenatta Consulting misspelled up there, and they are added into the project as well. Additionally, you have your profiles, and inside of the profiles, there's really, you have all of the various ones. I'm going to talk about the admin profile here because this will kind of give you everything you can set up, and everything other than the admin is a subset of this. So again, this is where you're setting up the permissions, what the person can and can't do. And of course, an admin has access to all of these things, but maybe you want to have a different profile, a client profile, a contractor. They kind of give you the default layouts that you may want to go with, but you can easily create your own profile and customize the various things that you want them to see. So do they have the ability to create a new project? Yes or no? You know, can they have chat? Can they participate in the forums? Can they do project budgets? So all of these various things that you can kind of minutely go ahead and set up. What can they do from a module permission? Can they view, add, edit, delete? Anything you would kind of see across most of the Zoho projects where you're going in and you're setting up these various permissions, you have that ability to do that also in Zoho projects. So you can get very granular with this. Maybe you want to give someone just very, very limited access to a project. You can go ahead and create that profile and make sure that they're just seeing and have access to what you want them to see as it relates to that particular project. And then lastly are the roles. Tyler and I kind of talked about a little bit about this offline. This is an odd one in that it's nothing more than a name. So this is when you've got a person, you can assign a role to them. There's no permissions based around this. There's nothing. It's just a flag. All you can do when you edit these is change the name. And when you add a role, you can just add a name. There doesn't appear to be anything associated with these. So this is a method. Maybe you've got 20 people associated with a project and you just want to at a glance be able to sort them by what they are in the organization, what their role is. It makes it really easy for you to go ahead and do that by creating these roles. And then in teams, this is where you can create an entire team that can work collaboratively. And to create a team is, again, straightforward. Go ahead, click to create a team, give the team a name, add the team members to it, and then go ahead and associate them with the project. And then you also have one little cool thing here. You can actually set up an email alias and associate that with this project. So let's say you set up an email alias and you had all of the team members were on this. So once someone emailed to, let's say, project@zenatta.com, everybody who was associated with that alias would get that email. So by setting up a team alias, any automated emails that are coming out of the system will go to everybody on that alias. So a really nice feature to keep everybody notified with what's going on with the system there, with the overall project. And then once you've created the team, it tells you, give you your team names. So you can have all your teams will automatically be created. So when you do a new project, it's easy just to go ahead and add a team to that project. And everything you've set up for that team will then be associated with the new project when you go ahead and set that up. And with that, we'll flip it over to Tyler and we can talk about milestones, tasks, and task lists.
Yeah, so the milestones, task lists, and tasks are basically the little hierarchy that we have in organizing the action items for a project. So it starts kind of top of the hierarchy is the milestones. Then you can create multiple task lists under those, and then multiple tasks under your task lists. So we're going to go ahead and start by creating a milestone here. So when we click that create button, it pops open a pretty simple little screen. We can put in a name, a start and an end date, and then a responsible person. So doing that right, we'll say there's our milestone for core module customization. We're expecting this is going to take about a week here. So we're going to start and end kind of early August. I'm going to say I'm the responsible person and that this milestone is internal. So that's kind of a callback to, you know, those client user accounts where when you have a client user, you can choose to make a milestone internal, meaning the client user can't see it, or external, meaning that the client user can see it. So it's kind of a way to set up sharing permissions there for non-organization users. And then under this little drop down, right, we can choose the responsible person. So we could assign it to either Zen or Ben Atta, as well as our client user, Brett. So we could actually say that one of the clients is responsible for that milestone. Then once we have this created, right, we're kind of sitting inside of that milestone screen is where it drops you off right when you finish creating the milestone itself. We're able to go ahead and add a task list to this milestone. So if we click that button, we'll pop up a little task list here. Now these are kind of the simplest records in all of these. They don't have a specific start and end date for themselves. They're just kind of categories for organizing the tasks. So if our milestone was to do the customization of some core CRM modules, then surely we're going to want to work on the leads module so we can create that as a specific task list, right? So if we could imagine, we'd probably have it list for leads, accounts, contacts, and deals if we're kind of doing a baseline CRM setup here. And so once we create that, right, we'll see that it's now one of the lists, again, still underneath this milestone. And once we click on that list itself there, it'll drop us into the list view where we can start to load up our tasks. So under here, a quick note before we go to the next one, if we go back just one, it does give you a alias email. So if you ever wanted to just drop a task in via an email, right there above the add task button, you can grab that and then just forward emails directly to that address and it'll create tasks for you. Just kind of a nice little thing because I know a lot of project management tools do have that. So Zoho implemented that here as well. So you're able to actually create them via email. But then creating a task, looks kind of similar to creating any of our other entries here in projects. So we'll give it a name, a basic description here. So if we're going to add some qualification requirements in the lead page, right, we can kind of leave a note and say, we're going to set up fields to capture these data points. In this one, I'm assigning it over to Ben rather than Zen. So we're going to assign an owner. And then within this, right, the milestone is starting on the 28th. And so the task can start that date as well. But I'm going to say the due date's just in a couple days because this shouldn't take us too long. And we want to make sure that we move through this quickly so that we can hit the rest of the items inside of this milestone. Of course, we can also assign it a priority there on that view. And since this one's kind of key, we assigned it a high priority. So now, it kind of drops us off in our task view. So looking here, right, we see our task is underneath the leads task list. And then to the right of leads, we see it's under the core modules customization milestone there in green. So it kind of shows you on this page, your milestone, your task list, and then your task so that you're able to kind of track those and see everything organized for you. We can also add tasks directly from this screen. So if we click on the add task button, right, it drops down a little tab for us to add the task name. So we can just type any old task name in there and hit enter, and it'll drop that task into our list. It's kind of nice. It's really quick. You don't have to click many times. You just click once, type, and then hit enter, and you've added a task. So it's nice if you're kind of working through, maybe you're on a call with someone and you're logging these tasks. It's really quick and painless to add them in. And then from this tab, we can actually change these field values. So I won't say it works like a spreadsheet, but it kind of has that feel, right, where you can actually customize or change values in these different columns without clicking into each record. So here we've kind of run through and changed the owner, the start date, the due dates, and priority, all just from this master screen here where we're able to see all of our tasks. It's kind of a nice way to view it because you can then see the start and due dates of all the other tasks in the list to make sure that we're not overloading and that we don't have too many things that might be starting the same day or due the same day. So you're actually able to make those changes from the overview page like this and kind of see it all in one pane of glass.
So now let's talk about Gantt charts and reports. So Zoho kind of breaks these down a little differently. And so if you from the home screen, you've actually got many ways to access this. You can access them inside a project. You can access this from the home screen. From the home screen, you will see you've got your global reports. And we're going to kind of cover through these here. So the Gantt charts, if you've never seen a Gantt chart before, it's a way to visualize everything that you have got going on. So, kind of from what Tyler did here, you've got a project, you've got the various activities, you've got the milestones, you've got the subtasks under the milestones, you have the due dates, the percentage of completion. And so this is a way to kind of visualize on a calendar where you are in the project and how everything is tracking along. Gantt charts are very popular on most project management software applications have them. And I find it to be personally a great way to visualize everything that's going on. Another way of looking at this, though, and Zoho does this quite well, Tyler talked about it earlier, is the calendar view. The calendar view will also, in a way, kind of give you what's going on, where things are, how long they were supposed to take, how many days they were supposed to stretch over. It's just a matter of personal preference, but this is just kind of one nice way to get an overview of what's going on with your project and projects altogether. And then we've got our resource utilization, and Zoho uses little teeter-totters, so it can kind of tell you, where Ben is and his utilization and, where Zen is, and if they're 100% utilized or 0% utilized, you basically have got, you can kind of see where people are based upon the number of tasks, the number of hours they're assigned, the days of the week, and what their overall utilization when they're doing a project is. This can be really helpful from a point of view. I'm not sure I love the graphical representation here, but it can be really, really useful if you just kind of want to scan down and see where people are, and maybe you've got somebody who's being underutilized or somebody you can see who's completely maxed out. And then you can look at your overall planned versus actual. And so, what's going on. So, Ben's utilization, with the plan was he was going to work 20 hours. He's actually logged 1.5. So he's got a little bit of a difference. He's got a delta here. He's got more time to do. We thought he was going to spend more time on it. But, as you're looking at this in real time, you can kind of see if you've broken all this down, how much time you thought it was going to take people to get something done as opposed to the time it actually took them. And if you're on a billable hours type of project, it can be really important that you kind of hold to what your overall estimates are, especially if you're working on something where it's fixed bid. You can see if you're going to go over bid, under bid, those kind of things. So it really gives you nice little details as to what's happening there. And then you also have the project timeline Gantt chart. And what this does is it basically takes all of your projects and lets you know where all of them are in a project basis. As long as they're an active project and they're in your overall time frame, you basically can see all of your projects, what's going on with them and where they are. Just kind of quick view to make sure you're on track, and where the project is, what the percentage is completed, the task, what's overdue, all of those kind of things. It's kind of a real simple view to see, especially when you've got maybe 20, 30, 40 projects going. This is a great way to see how you're doing on all of your projects and maybe which ones need attention because they've fallen behind a little bit. And then lastly, you have Zoho Analytics. We're not going to talk about this, but we did a webinar a few months ago on Zoho Analytics, and basically all of the data from all of the projects can be pulled out of Zoho projects and pulled into Zoho Analytics. And once it's in there, you can do magic with it. You can kind of slice and dice it in a lot of ways. Maybe you can't in these very simple global reports that you have inside Zoho projects. And in Zoho's case, a lot of times they default to some very simplistic reports in their applications, whether it's in CRM or projects or Desk or Zoho Books in the finance suite. And then they leave the heavy lifting to Zoho Analytics. So really by taking the data out, and they've got connectors for these applications, syncing the data into Zoho Analytics, then you're able to kind of do some really deep reporting on various aspects of your projects. And with that, we'll turn it over to Tyler, who's going to talk a little bit about time tracking.
Thank you. So time tracking is kind of one of the features here inside of projects that can be used for a variety of different use cases. So if you're working internally, it might be to track, your landed cost on these different projects. Maybe you have installers who are spending time on location, or you have developers who are working on, different software products. You want to be able to track, where's that time being spent, right? So if we can identify down the line that certain types of tasks are taking a lot of time, right? Maybe we want to tweak the way that we're working through those. So logging time is a pretty quick and painless thing to do here. So if we are looking here at our task list and we go ahead and pull up one of the tasks, down here at the bottom of the page, we have a couple of related lists underneath this task. And so if we click on log hours, it'll go ahead and pull up a little page here for us to add time entries. So if we click on that add log hours, we can basically define, when this time was spent, what date, who spent it. It's going to default to, the user that's looking at the project as they do this. And then you have two different ways to enter time. So you can either enter it as a numerical amount. So 1.5 would be 1 hour and 30 minutes. Or you can log it as a start and an end time. So maybe we started at 5 and ended at 6:45. We're doing a little bit of morning work here, and you're actually able to set up a clock in and clock out functionality here to track time, and it's gonna add it up for you the same way and kind of give you the same roll up reporting. But you just kind of have those two different ways to actually enter the time values when you're logging time here. So once you do that and you go ahead and add the time log, you'll see it basically adds to a list here So we can see the date and the user for each of the time entries, how long they entered as their time, if it was billable or if it was not billable, which really is just going to come into play for client projects. And then down there in the far bottom right, we actually see the total of all of the time entries for the specific task that we're looking at. And then kind of from an admin view, if we hop over to the timesheet section of a given project, we can look at the time spent a couple different ways. So first here, we're looking at it as the list view. So this is kind of just a simple way we could basically see a list of all of our time entries here. They're going to organize them based on the date that they've been added. And it'll give you a couple of roll-ups there of billable, non-billable, and then total time. We'll see up in the top right that this is kind of default filtered looking at this week, but we can change that date filter and see this month, this year, or any specific time frame that you want to look at. We can also look at this based on a grid view. So the grid is kind of a way to look at it day over day. So again, we're kind of looking at this week. We can see time tracked on any specific day of this week, right? So on the 27th, we logged this amount. The next day, we could log a different amount. This way is not going to give you a specific user view. So if we had two different users that log time on the same task, it's just going to roll it up for both of the users. Versus over in the list, we get a little bit more customization in terms of which user we want to look at, or which ways that we want to kind of slice and dice the timesheet data. And then last but not least, we can look at it from a monthly basis. So kind of grid would be like a week. The month is going to be, of course, looking at a month. The only difference here is that when you're looking at it on a monthly basis, it's not going to break it down by the specific task. So this would just be time spent day over day for a given month. And then it rolls up each week over there in the column in the far right of the page. So that you could see basically time allocation for a given project week over week. If you're ever to kind of feel that you're falling behind on a couple of milestones, maybe you want to hop in here and say, did we get started on this too late? Right. So if we were supposed to deliver this by the end of July, but there's really no logged time for that first week, maybe we want to use that and work on kind of our spin up process to make sure that we hit the ground running when we're working on these projects. So the timesheets are useful for a lot of different reasons. Again, kind of just, of course, for tracking your cost or tracking any billable time. But it's also useful to make sure that projects are being worked on consistently, and that they're getting started on time, and that we have a nice kind of burn rate through each of these projects as we're working on them.
All right, and then we'll talk a little bit here about the dashboard. So you've got the homepage dashboard and a project dashboard. We'll start with the homepage dashboard. There are a lot of components that you can add to your dashboard and take away from your dashboard. So you can have basic overview of how many tasks you have, how many milestones, how many issues. You can have the list view. If you're familiar with Zoho CRM, think about all of the elements you can put on the CRM dashboard. It's very similar here. So you don't have to have this report tab here or the issue tab, the bug tracker. You can take these off. What's due today, what's overdue, what are my milestones, my timesheets, the calendar view. A lot of the things that we've gone through as we've talked through here, you can put all of these on your dashboard. So at a glance, you can kind of see everything that's going on, all the way down to your events and your tasks for your team members. All of these things are very, very simple to basically go through and to put in here, quickly at a glance, see them on your dashboard. Now, the dashboard can get really, really cluttered. So they do give you the ability to customize it. And it's these three little dots up in the corner. You've got a couple little things you can do with this. If you want to reorder your dashboard, you actually don't do it by dragging the elements on the screen. You do it actually by dragging them over here. So you just kind of move these around to whatever positions. If you want a My Overview at the bottom, you would drag it to the bottom. And if you just wanted to turn it off, you can just go ahead and click the little green button and you would turn it off, and it would not show up on the dashboard at all. Similarly to this, when kind of customizing your view, you'll probably want to do it in a project. And one of the things, that Tyler was talking about when we went through, he said, we're going to skip over the finance and expense part. Well, If you actually had a project where you weren't really tracking any of those things, you might not want to see all of these on the side. So you also have that ability to go ahead and organize all of the tabs you see in an individual project as well. And that's the little organize tabs button there. And once you do that and you click on that, you kind of have a whole different graphical interface here as far as rearranging this dashboard. But you can just easily go in and click on the little green button to turn it red to go ahead and turn it off. So let's say you didn't want to see your task for some reason, and to rearrange, you would just grab the little dots there and then move it to wherever you want to see it. So this is kind of a quick and easy way to go ahead and arrange really the side widgets that you're going to see, the side menu inside any individual project. Once you get your home page customized and your projects customized, it's pretty clean and pretty simple. And you also can do it for all existing and upcoming projects. So once you dial this in, you might say, look, all my projects, I really don't need to see the issues tab, which is bugs, because maybe we're not software development. I don't want to have any discussion forums. I don't care about the pages. You can basically turn these various things off and just kind of customize the project for your organization and how you are going to use Zoho projects. And so I know we had a few questions come in. I've been driving the slide deck and talking, so I haven't had a chance to go through any. So Tyler, are there any of them you want to highlight?
Yeah, so we kind of ran through a good chunk of these throughout the course of the presentation. I'll kind of pull some here to highlight. So we had one about adding in work drive documents to a Zoho projects document tab. You can totally do that. So as long as you have work drive installed, there's a little, I believe there's a little plugin or integration you have to turn on inside of projects. But once you do that under the new document section, there's a little button for cloud. And once you pick cloud, you can go ahead and drop docs in from your work drive suite. So if you have a bunch of documents there that you want to just be able to pull in and view from inside of the project itself, you can use one of their little pre-built tools to do that. We had another one here for Gantt charts, kind of viewing, exporting these. Sounds like maybe we want to take a Gantt chart and put it onto some type of big screen, and the scaling was getting a little funky. So you actually can take those Gantt charts and export or convert them to PDF. When you're looking at the reporting page, there's little 3 dots, and Zoho has a habit of hiding a lot of stuff under the little 3 dot menus. So when you ever can't find something, it's always a good place to look. And under there, we're able to convert it to a PDF. There's a couple options about sizing, so you might want to try a couple of the different options, but one of them should be able to fit your big screen pretty nicely. We had a quick one around changing the name of bugs or issues. So this is another one it's parked in kind of a weird place, but you can do it. So it's under your settings and then organization settings. And then you can go into a tab for configuration. And then oddly enough, up at the top of the screen, you get a little tab for renaming issues or bugs or whatever it's called for your current system. So there's a couple of these that can be done, but they're just kind of hidden under a couple different clicks.
We've got a bunch here from Ben. Ben will try to answer all of these, but I'll just take one that I found amusing. So I recently started exploring Zoho Contact Manager iOS app. It also has tasks, and wondering if you know a way to sync those tasks with projects. One thing can be frustrating for me about Zoho is it seems that many of the apps are not integrated with each other. For instance, I'd like my CRM contacts and global across books, campaigns, etc. Well, you can get your CRM contacts to be global across your books and campaigns. But tasking, I want to talk about in particular. So Zoho is starting to tackle integrating tasking, and it's not in a place you might expect. It's in Zoho Connect. So in Zoho Connect, you actually can have your projects, CRM, desk, and mail tasks. So if you're using Zoho Mail, Zoho Desk, Zoho Project, Zoho CRM, as well as Zoho Connect tasking, you can aggregate all of your tasks in that one spot. It's, I think, funny. It's not something I think where we thought it was going to end up, Tyler, for as far as where you would aggregate all the tasks. But we actually love it, and we use it on a daily basis for a lot of just kind of quick, down and dirty projects. It has Kanban boards. You have the ability to have multiple boards, and you can set those up. So it might be something you want to take a look at.
And then there's kind of part two. The question was syncing contacts kind of across the board too. So projects specifically doesn't have contacts, but you can sync your contacts out to books and campaigns kind of across. There's a lot of pre-built integrations for Zoho that'll allow us to do that. Couple other questions here. We had a question about document limits. To my knowledge, there aren't any specific document limits per project, but I believe the portal as a whole has a limit of about 100 gig. So I could be mistaken on that, but I believe their last limit that they set there was 100, kind of across all the different projects. So that is kind of one of the nice things about, maybe using WorkDrive for some files. If you have like some images that should be related to a lot of projects, maybe that's a good time to park those over in WorkDrive where the storage is a lot higher. We had kind of a custom question here. So, maybe someone who has a custom process for project management, and asking a little about how much we can customize the workflow in Zoho projects. So you can to a degree. You can set up little blueprints inside of the tasks. You can set up dependencies, but it all is going to follow that kind of cascade or waterfall project management. So like if you use sprints or kind of more of an agile methodology, you might want to use Zoho sprints, which is a lot more like Jira. So it does kind of depend, like, Brett and I talk about this a lot, that project management software it's not like a right answer, wrong answer thing. A lot of them are going to come with things that they do really well, things that they don't do well, different formatting decisions or workflow decisions. And so, yeah, kind of to summarize, you can customize the workflow in projects to a certain degree, but, there's going to be aspects of it that are kind of pre-built to the methodology that they built the project with.
We had a couple questions here. I don't think you answered this about calendar sync. I saw you answered it here, but you can actually sync the project's calendar with Google. It actually is pre-built integrations for Zoho, Outlook, and Google Calendars. So we had that asked by a couple of people. I know you answered it offline here, but if that wasn't seen, I wanted to get that out there as well.
Gotcha.
And it looks like the other.
We had a question: is this similar to Airtable? Again, kind of a yes and no thing. I mean, you can get some views in there that are similar, but it's not quite as customizable as Airtable. For those who haven't used it, Airtable is like a cloud spreadsheet tool. It's pretty slick. The UI is really nice, highly customizable. So Zoho projects, you're not going to be able to do everything you can do in Airtable, but it comes with a lot more stuff pre-built, right? Where Airtable, you're kind of starting from ground up. Projects is going to do a lot for you, but it might not be quite as customizable as some of the custom work that you can do over in Airtable, just because it is in essence kind of like a spreadsheet tool.
And I wouldn't be surprised. So, project management software, the best project management software is a lot like your favorite music. It just happens to be what you like, period. Zoho Projects is very similar to Microsoft Projects. It's very robust, very full featured. One of the other leading types of project management software is something called Jira. It's used by a lot of software companies, and it uses a sprints methodology, which is Zoho Sprints. So if you say, this kind of project management isn't for me, you might want to look at Zoho Sprints. Airtable is very similar to a company called Smartsheet. Again, a very similar kind of a spreadsheet-based type of project management. Zoho doesn't really have anything like Airtable or Smartsheet, which is, I kind of think it's like the last little leg of kind of the third type of project management software.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe one day they'll come out with that. But if you look at projects and you say, hey, it's just a little too much for me. Couple of things I would recommend. Take a look at Zoho Sprints. It's a whole different methodology for doing projects, and you might like it. Or go ahead, believe it or not, and look at Zoho Connect and go into their tasking engine in there and see if maybe using those kind of task boards and those kind of things might work for your projects as well. We use all three, depending on the type of project that we're doing and what the needs are for the specific project. So, it's project management is not a one size fits all kind of thing. So really kind of play around with it and figure out what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, it's all about productivity. How productive, this is supposed to make you more productive. It's not supposed to make you sit there for hours and hours and click and add things in that are totally useless to you. So if you find your project management tool is not making you more productive, then move on and try another one. Anything else?
Any other ones to highlight here? See, a couple people have asked about recording. So this will go live on our YouTube channel tomorrow morning, the full recording of this webinar. So if there's anything that you want to kind of touch on again or re-review, it'll all be posted out there. We'll have a link to that in just a moment on the screen. Yeah, I think that sums up a lot of the questions here. We had a quick question about milestones. So milestones are set to like active or inactive or completed statuses. And once you finish all the tasks or task lists underneath the milestone, it should update itself up to completed. So you don't have to really go in and manually say that we've completed a milestone. It's basically once everything's done underneath it, it should complete itself. If you're not experiencing that, it's a specific person asking. If you're not experiencing that, get in touch with us or Zoho support, and we can kind of facilitate that, because that is how it's supposed to be running for you.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And as Tyler mentioned, if you go to youtube.com/Zenatta, you will this webinar will be there tomorrow. All of our other webinars are there. We also have a whole bunch of tips and tricks. We also do something called the CRM Zen Show, which every single week we talk about all the latest Zoho news. And with pushing up, getting close to 50 applications, there's a lot of news each week, and we kind of cover what's going on there, what the updates are, what's happening with everything. And you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We really appreciate you joining us. Our next webinar will be towards the end of August. We'll get that date out shortly. And thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us today. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.